Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you? This is Freddie Ewan, three-time GM of the Year, 2022 Pantheon Cup champion, 2023 regular season champion, and the 2024 Pantheon Cup runner-up. This is going to be an awesome show. We have like a TPFFKAL legend, Jonathon Champ on. Champ, how you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you, John Frederick?
I'm good. I'm good. I was really impressed this year. We had our first award that came out, the Most Improved GM Award, which you were the winner of. I was looking earlier, I think you had 13 total wins the first 3 years.
Mm.
And this year you went 9-5, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, when we put the computer things after the draft and everything, you were actually predicted. I know you had a lot of cap money, but you were actually predicted next to last
That's
and
right. Yeah.
ended up with a great team. And what did you do differently? Tell me.
Well, honestly, the simplest answer is I paid attention this year. In previous years, I kind of softballed it in. I hadn't been watching a lot of football, and it's tough to stay plugged in and dialed. I mean, this league is so stacked with guys that love the game, that know the positions, they know the offenses and defenses of every team. It's tough to keep up. I just decided after the fire sale in 23, it's time to start paying attention and doing a little research. Um, I do have to give a shout out to another TPFFKAL legend, and that is Brian BMAC McCluskey. He and I went back and forth a lot preseason, and he helped me a lot, fleshing through my research, and I was bouncing questions off of him. So on draft day, I was pretty well prepared. Those preseason rankings, as you can see, they're not worth the paper they're printed on. You get a good idea of how a guy's going to fold into an offense. And I mean, Derrick Henry, the guy's he was a freight train. He's old as hell, but his workout regimen is, I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but I'll tell you right now, you pull up some YouTube on that guy and he can move freight trains. Utterly ridiculous.
Derrick Henry was, in lots of drafts. He was not getting a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they said that he was, a late second round pick. And the dude turned out to be, basically the second best running back.
That's right.
Scored a
He's a
ton of
workhorse.
touchdowns, was, unbelievable. Back to Brian McCluskey. God, it's like I don't know what the hell is the matter with him. It's like it's like I mean, all he does. All he texts and talks to me about is fantasy football, but he didn't play in any league. He played in this one guillotine league and got knocked out the first week. But it's like, it'd be nice to, we got a good group now. It's fun to pick on cousin Pat, and Teji looks like a good player, but I do miss Brian. I do miss that. I do miss Brian. He's eligible to become an assistant GM, so maybe he'll do that this year.
That's very true. And the GRONKDONKS may well be interested in co-management. So who knows?
So the one thing that I was thinking too that I got to ask you is, and we've been, chatting along this chat group about, successful football teams recently. The New England Patriots were probably the most successful, from 2000 on, obviously, they've been the most
Mm-hmm.
successful franchise, and basically, every good thing ends. Brady moved on, Belichick moved on, most of the coaches moved on. The Patriots have really struggled the last few years. Does that
Yep.
and that I think being a fan almost of that team and having to watch those, having to watch them and just being like, I don't want to watch these games, that probably has an effect on your level of fantasy football, I would think.
It does for sure. My love of the game, as you mentioned, was 2000s through 2020, right? That was the era of Brady Belichick and the Patriots dynasty, and that's what I grew up in. And I was super plugged in. I um, just pivoting back to BMAC again, right? Sometimes you get burned out, and for a few years there, I was kind of like, screw this, I'm not watching it. I can't be competitive, but this league has really sucked me back in. As to the Pats, I mean, they've got a really bright future. I think Vrabel is going to be an incredible addition. I mean, he was part of that early, I think 01 to 08, I think on the Patriots and those early Brady years. I think he had 3 bowls. He was a disciple of Belichick. He was a part of that offense and part of that team, an integral part. Sorry, part of that defense rather. He was a back, wasn't he? But I think if he can harness what he learned from Belichick, and how Belichick builds a team and that sense of the team before yourself, I think that they could have a very serious rebuild in the next couple of years here.
I think the one thing too, though, is, it always starts at the top. And, you look
Hmm.
at like, the Commanders, for instance, it's like, Dan Snyder is obviously the worst owner in sports. He's gone for
Yeah.
a year and they're in the NFC Championship game. And I
Yep.
think, when you look at Robert Kraft, I think Robert Kraft is obviously one of the great owners of all time. He's one of the guys that built it. You know, a
No
lot of
doubt.
things that went their way, no one knew that this guy that they picked in the sixth round was going to be the best quarterback of all time.
Backwoods of
Bel
Michigan.
Belichick had a lot of great years as the defensive coordinator as the Giants, but when he went over to the Cleveland Browns, he was absolutely awful,
Yep.
So just like a lot of things worked in place, but I think that firing Mayo just like that, really tells that Kraft is a he's a guy that knows how to put a team together, and Mayo was not the guy. He got Vrabel, who's he's a patriot,
That's
through and
right.
through, and a defensive guy too. And I think that they do have good things ahead. They need a lot more pieces, but
They
you
do.
look at the NFL, and the great thing about the NFL is you have your teams that are consistent, like the Chiefs have been consistent, my Eagles have been consistent over the years, but
Yep.
it doesn't take that much to make a comeback. You could be an awful team one year, and the next year, you're making the playoffs and have a shot at the Super Bowl sometimes.
Well, I think the Skins are a great example. This year they look at the rebirth that they've had, and you get a couple of good building blocks, good young talent. I mean, I don't think any of us had any clue that Daniels was going to turn out to be what he was. I mean, the whole conversation before the league started this year was, well, he's tiny, he's going to get whooped up on, he's not going to be resilient. He thinks on his feet, he knows how to throw the ball well, he can move. But you get a couple of those building blocks, and I think honestly, everything is culture and leadership, and that's part of the reason that Belichick Brady era was so successful because it was always team first. They didn't put up with bad eggs. Who the heck was that nitwit they got? He was on the Skins for a while. That big loudmouth, Hainsworth. When it
Yeah,
Albert
yeah,
Hainsworth,
yeah, yeah.
he played. He came to the Patriots, and Belichick was like, "You're gonna shut your mouth and play in position I put you, and you're gonna carry the load, or you're gone." I think it was like half the season. He was like, "Get the fuck out of here."
Absolutely.
Um, so culture is everything, and if Vrabel's able to harness that old mentality, I think that they'll be back on their feet next couple of years. Pitiful
Have
year
you
this year, but
have you watched that Apple special, The Dynasty?
mm-hmm.
That was just, I mean, I thought that was, the Bulls 90s dynasty. I thought that was like right up there with it. Just, really
Mm-hmm.
giving the whole inside story on how they got successful and how those two, Brady and Belichick had so much success together, and they basically both like blew up almost. It was almost like a power grab on who was going to do what. And, they looked at those two Super Bowls, the last two Super Bowls the Patriots won, and the one where they were down 28-3,
Yep.
yeah, that was all Brady's doing,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. And then they talked about the Super Bowl that they lost to the Eagles, where Belichick made the big error and had some kind of personal issue with Malcolm Butler and ends up putting him
Yep.
on the
Yep.
bench. And it looks like Belichick's going to go almost, and they're going to keep Brady. And then the next year,
Yep.
that Super Bowl against the Rams, where the Rams have this high octane offense, and they score 3 points, and Belichick puts the perfect defensive plan together and
Mm-hmm.
takes this young coach to the cleaners.
Yep.
And
Yeah, impressive run. We'll see if we again. Especially when you go through like a 20-year, dynastic part of your history like that. I mean, look at the Iron Curtain in the '80s, right? I mean, you go through rebuilding periods, you're going to lose those core parts of the team, and the sacrifices that Bill and Tom made to put the right guys around them so they could be successful for as long as they were. I mean, that's almost never going to be reproduced, let alone on the same team for 20 years. So if we can get back to some of that philosophy, I think we'll get back on our feet.
And the other thing that I find funny is, Kansas City has been the dominant team right now. They've
Mhm.
won 3 Super Bowls. They won back-to-back Super Bowls. They're in their seventh straight AFC Championship game. Pat Mahomes is still going to win more Super Bowls, but it's
He
funny.
will.
I don't think he is going to win as many Super Bowls as Tom Brady is, and the reason is because of Tom Brady. He,
Yeah.
you know, he, you know, he Mahomes lost to Brady in the AFC Championship in 2018 against the Patriots, and then 2 years
Yeah,
later lost in the Super Bowl when he was on Tampa Bay. Um,
that's
he's
right.
only beat the only two people that beat Mahomes in the playoffs is Joe Burrow once and Tom Brady twice. And Tom Brady did that when he was 40 and 42 years old, which is like, absolutely amazing.
Ridiculous. Totally ridiculous.
And
Yeah, there.
that's gonna be why Mahomes might be the second best quarterback ever.
We'll see. Again, he's still got a runway in front of him, and Andy Reid's one hell of a coach, and they've put a great package around him. We'll see if Kelsey can have a bounce back next year too. I think the Kelsey magic is probably in the past as far as fantasy numbers go. He'll still be, top whatever 3-5, but there's some great young talent out there that's coming up too. I think that he's going to have a tough time holding on to that point spot, but we'll
So,
see.
so going to next year, it's always like, the top player, the top pick was Christian McCaffrey this year. There were so many top picks. Tyreek Hill was awful this year. CD
Yep.
Lamb was awful this year. You're going to look at the top three picks next year. It's probably going to be around, I don't know if you have the first, let's just say you have the first, second, and third pick in the draft next year. Who do you think the top three fantasy football players are going to be?
Man, it's such a tough question. It's so heavily based on the point structure of your league too, which again, all the minutia, for years I hadn't been paying attention to, but you guys have dialed me back in as a group. If our tight end package goes through in TPFFKAL, that'll change the calculus a little bit. I don't think in any world that even the best tight end in the league, or the best prospect in the league, is going to go in a top three, but for me, you got to shore the team up with the best QB and best running back that you can get. And I think honestly, those two, it's got to be between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I think they both have great pieces coming back. They've got some good young talent around them. I'd probably go with Allen, and then I'd probably follow up with a running back, and Saquon's got to be in that discussion. I mean, how many years he got left on that contract with Philly?
He signed a 3-year contract. He's in his,
Yeah,
I think he's in his seventh year, so
right.
he's not necessarily young. And he's had some injuries too. I just think,
That's
the
true.
thing about Saquon, which is, the Eagles wanted to make, you saw what San Francisco did when they traded for CMC, and they
Hmm.
ended up going to the Super Bowl. And I think that the Eagles, it's really the piece that they needed, and they had a great offensive line.
No,
Hurts
that O
is
line is incredible.
I love my boy Jalen Hurts, but Hurts has had kind of a history now of getting banged up a lot at the end of the season. And I never thought Hurts was going to be like, a super, super, super quarterback, like one of those guys. He's a level under Jackson and Mahomes and Allen, but when you
Yep.
put the players around him, he can react. I think that when he's got great teammates. I mean, he's got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. He's got a great tight end,
Oh
great
yeah.
offensive line. I think that they really make up for his mistakes. And the thing about Hurts is he was picked in the second round. I mean, he was not a high pick.
Hmm.
No one thought he was going to do much when he got to the NFL. And I do think it's really a team game with the Philadelphia Eagles, and they have a lot of great players at offense.
They really do, and you can't stress enough what you said a moment ago, and that is with the O line. That O line is just, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. And there's so many threats, whether it's on the ground or in the air. I mean, you get veteran like AJ Brown, and you can back him up with Saquon on any given play. It's tough to cover that,
Yeah,
when you can
yeah,
spread that offense around like that.
yeah. And
Um,
the offensive line has been great. They really have.
but I think if I was to round out top three, I'd have to go with a top tier receiver. Um, And there's so many good options, but I mean Chase is up there. You can still make me Puka Nakua. That guy has blown me away. He's kind of taken a lot of Cooper Cup's, his shine, his luster. The guy's able to make some utterly ridiculous catches. He's tough. He's a great blocker, and he doesn't mind at all coming across the center of the field. Um, That'd probably be it. I don't know. It's probably the wrong philosophy, but I think rounding out your top three in an ideal world with your first three picks, spend a lot of capital on some of those premium players to shore up those three positions. That's where my head would be.
It's always a good, that's always a good strategy too. I read a lot of these strategies in both auction drafts, but especially in auction drafts, there's a lot of these so-called professionals that really push. Like you take your cat money and you spend big on the
Yeah.
2 or 3 guys that you want, and then you almost fill everyone out because
Yep.
the other thing is it's a crapshoot. It is, and
That's right.
there's going to be players on the waiver wire that are going to be starters. They're going to be starting for you.
That's if there's anything this league has taught me, it's the depth of the NFL and being able to find those hidden gems. And our crew is, I mean, utterly ridiculous at being able to sniff
It's
that
tough to
shit
find
out.
them. Yeah,
It so is. I mean, and that's probably another weakness of mine that I'm hoping to shore up in the off season is doing a little more research on the college draft, right? The guys that are coming in, because I hope in years past I was sure like a Jaden Daniels, right? Like he would have been a great late pickup, would have short and he turned in, to a top producing QB
sure.
on a high octane offense. So that's certainly something that we're going to be focusing on in the offseason is getting our head around those mid to lower tier players and trying to root out some of those gems, the diamonds in the rough.
The other thing on that too is, all the buzz around the draft was Caleb Williams and how great he was going to be.
Yeah,
And, Daniels just comes in and just, obviously if they were doing the draft again, the Bears would have took Daniels.
of course. Yep.
And it's like I remember and the Texans made the playoffs. CJ Stroud was the second pick last year and had a great year, and he kind of backed down this year. But I like to make fun of all our Commander friends on the thing, but I am really impressed with I'm really impressed with them. I think they've had a tremendous year.
Oh, it's
Um,
going to be a hell of a game this weekend, man. It's going to be a hell of a fun game to watch.
you have, I know that the entire country, except for Philadelphia and Kansas City, is rooting for a Buffalo Commanders Super Bowl. I'm in Dallas right now, but I was in Austin last week, and I was in an Eagles bar with probably about 200 Eagle fans in the middle of Austin, which was
Uh-huh.
awesome. I'm going to try to find one in Dallas this weekend. I don't know if there is one or not, but
Oh, there's got to be one for everybody, especially this time of year.
so who do you think who's going to be in the Super Bowl? Give me your thoughts. I know who you want to be in the Super Bowl, but who's going to be in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I don't I think I got to go with my gut. I've been, for at least half the season, my thought has been it was going to be a Bills Lions Super Bowl. And having seen the Skins deal with the Lions last week I did not expect that at all, but they just handily
The
beat
game we
them.
did. Yeah.
No, would have been a good game to bet on. But I think I think you just hit where my head's at. I think it's gonna be Commanders and it's gonna be Bills. I think the Bills. I think it's going to be an offensive slugfest between the Bills and KC. I think it's going to be a little bit more grind and pound between the Skins and your Dirty Birds, but um, they're four great teams. It's so hard to make predictions on this stuff because on any given Sunday, as the old adage goes,
Yeah,
one key guy could show up.
I would really be if they weren't playing the Eagles, I would really be rooting for the Commanders to do
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
and if they and believe it or not, I'd probably root for the Bills if it's the Bills Commanders, but if it's the Commanders Chiefs, I'll definitely root for the Commanders.
no doubt.
I
I'm
think
right
a
there
lot
with
of people are sick and tired of Taylor Swift showing up at Super Bowls almost.
you.
Um, you had a big year, champ. You a lot of things that went your way. You made the playoffs. You're following in Joe's footsteps with girl, boy, girl. Got a new
That's
baby
right.
girl.
That's
You've
right.
always followed in my footsteps in the pet department with the dash hound and kitty. So
That's accurate.
yeah, so life is going good these days.
It's
New
good, brother. I
company, the
can't
whole nine
complain.
yards, right?
Yeah, we're very blessed over here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give the glory to the good Lord above, man. He's taking care of us, and we got a lot of good things coming in 2025, to include a deep playoff run next year in a TPFFKAL.
Are you planning on having another Super Bowl party this year?
No doubt. And if you're in town, your ass better be over here.
I might be there. I might be there. Last time I was at the Super Bowl, it was your house for a Super Bowl. The Eagles were in the Super Bowl.
That's right.
And I met your dad a couple times before, but it was the first time I met your mom. And your mom, I on my heel, she was like, Eagles, what are you doing here?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you were in hostile territory, but you put up with it well.
I was. And your dad I sat next to your dad most of the time, and he's a diehard Giants fan. So he just
Oh
kept
yeah.
looking at me like, giving me the nudge almost. But
Just another of the Jersey teams there, the New Jersey Giants.
all in good fun, though. Champ, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Appreciate you, brother, and keep up the good work. These things are awesome. Loving them as they come out.
We'll have to get you on it again next year before the draft and start talking about the GRONKDONKS and their strategy and how they're going to come back and get into the playoffs.
Sounds great. You let
How
us
much
know. We'll be
cap room
here.
do you have?
I think we're at $1.15, so it's going to be threading the needle. But like I said, I'd like to dive a little deeper into the research this offseason, get a little more plugged in on who's coming up and might blow up from the college ranks. So we'll see. So I'm in the middle of the pack. Middle of the pack.
That works. That makes sense.
Yep.
You'll do fine. I wanna leave everybody with just one thing before we go. Let me just share my screen here. I just want to leave everyone with just one thing before we go. And that is
Oh man, he is incredible. Let's hope we get some snow in these playoffs, huh? They
that's
got a
Jonathon
shot.
Chip and the Philadelphia Eagles, baby. You
That's
guys
it.
have a great night.
God bless, Freddie. We'll see you.